Carolyn says, "Hi, Rev. Can you talk about how to deal with fear and not just be not afraid way, as the fear is real and dismissing it or ignoring it isn't working? In fact, I think it makes it worse somehow." Well, it depends on what the fear is. It depends on what the fear is, and yeah. So number one, never minimize a fear. If it's a physical fear, like for example, you think somebody is following you, you should take action about that. You should call the police. You should make sure that you're never alone. You should have people in place that you can feel safe with and trust. You should do everything you need to do to stay safe. If it's a fear, for example, of what may come, right? Like, okay, so Trump's been elected. And now I'm afraid. I'm afraid of what? Well, I'm afraid of the things that he said. Okay. So he said these things, and now they may or may not transpire. You can't dismiss them, but you also can't do anything about what you're afraid of, because it may or may not happen. It hasn't been initiated yet. Nobody's pulled the trigger on it. And so there's nothing really to do about that thing that you are afraid is going to come and befall upon you. So what would I say? I would say that with that fear, right, those thoughts, that understanding, present and available to you, and in your thoughts, it's there. Cherish it, respect it, value it. Okay. But don't let it stop you from living. Don't let it stop you from being the person that you're supposed to be. So you know it's there, right? You know it's a possibility, but do not let it stop you from being the person that God is calling you to be. Don't let it steal your life. Because if it steals your life, then you may have to ask the question, well, what's the point of worrying about it? It's already taking everything from me. It's already taking away my joy. It's already taking away my purpose. It's taking away my work. What is it? What's left that it could take from me? So because it hasn't transpired yet, but I'm not minimizing it, go to work. Laugh, joke, be with your friends. Speak to your friends about it. Let them know where your heart is. Find a community that not necessarily, I don't want to say, because I would never say find a community where you can all sort of just, lament together, but find a community of supportive people. Find a community of people who you feel you can engage with. Find a community who supports. Find a community who empowers. Find a community that will stand with you. Perhaps it is a community of people who have the same fears. But again, the challenge would be, do not let it steal your life, even as a group. Find a way of being the people that God has called you to be. For me, that's kind of my attitude towards it. And I'm not saying it's for everybody, but that's my attitude towards it. When there's something that I'm afraid of, I know it's there. I know it's real. I know it could happen at any moment. But I don't want to allow it to steal from me any more than it's going to. So if the worst thing happens, let's say the worst thing happens in the next 3 months, the absolute worst thing happens, and everything that I was afraid would happen happens, and everything that I was afraid was going to get taken away from me gets taken away from me. Okay. But between now and the time that it happens, I'm not going to let it steal a bloody thing. I'm not going to let it take from me any more than it absolutely must. So between now and the time that thing I'm afraid of drops in front of me and begins its horrible, awful work, I will not let it take from me before that moment. I will not. And so I'm going to live actively and intentionally live my life in defiance of it. I know it's there, and I know it can come at any time, and I know it may come like a thief in the night, but I'm going to live this life in defiance of its presence until it does its horrible work. I will live my best life. That's all I got. Again, it's not to say you should just sweep it under the rug. It's to say, well, I'm a Trevors, and we're Irish. And, there's that, what's the expression about, spite can get us through everything. Well, I'm going to live in spite of that fear. I'm going to live in spite of it. I'm going to live in defiance of that ghost, that monster, that specter, that evil thing that is out there lurking and waiting to pounce. I'm going to live in defiance of it. It will not take from me any more than I absolutely must give it. Amen.